Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Accountant Best Practices in QBO. So we have just aligning with the platform, meaning the updated numbers from the end of quarter 3, fiscal year 18 for Intuit and the growth of QBO. Just so you know that even if you're not a fan of QuickBooks Online, just get some of your staff involved, right? So you can support both platforms. We are going to be starting in QuickBooks Online Accountant. We'll go through team, clients, talk a little about wholesale billing. There's a new option in there that I want to show you. Then we'll go through Pro Advisor really quick, because every person you invite to your QBOA, they have the opportunity to get certified and have their own unique online Pro Advisor membership. And then the Work tab, which we're adding stuff to recently yesterday, I have a little bit on it I can show, although I think it's a one-way integration. It's the integration with Slack, in case any of you are using that to collaborate with your team within the firm. We use it internally at Intuit. You can create Slack rooms and message back and forth, upload stuff. It's great. It's a great tool. So we have QBOA now integrates with that through the Work tab. So we'll be looking at creating projects in the file share piece, a little bit on Slack integration that I've been able to just figure out in the last couple of days. And then we'll dive into a client file, look at accountant tools, navigation, reporting, things like that. And I usually end with bank feeds and bank rules. Like, how do you automate the data entry to get into the client QBO file so then I'm just quicker to get to the report or whatever is my gig with the client? And I think just the bank feeds and particularly rules are very impactful. And I'll sure I have a minute or so to go over the recurring transactions with QuickBooks Payments as well. Yeah, sounds like enough for today. So stats at the end of Q3, our third quarter that Brad Smith recently, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, unveiled to Wall Street, just so now I can share it. We have a QBO subscription growth of over 41%. So now we're at 3.2 million actually subscriptions globally. 2.5 are in the U.S., so mostly in the U.S., right? And we got like 700,000 subs globally, which is pretty cool. But if you liken that to even like 2 years ago when we hit 1 million subs, so quite a lot of growth. And then, you know, desktop still has 3.5 million users, right? So we're like 50-50 almost. And that again goes to my contention that as 78% of most small businesses are going to be going to the cloud or having some kind of accounting software by 2020, you know, it's good to get on board now, particularly when we're like half, like half desktop, half on QBO. I think that's pretty exciting from a QBO perspective. However, you'll have your clients that remain on desktop, and then you'll grow this kind of burgeoning QBO side of the business as well. And these numbers kind of prove to what's happening. Also, if you look at the self-employed piece, that QuickBooks Self-Employed, though not really considered QuickBooks Online, it is online. It's kind of like fills that space between Mint and QuickBooks Online. So you'd have like Schedule C clients that really don't need a bunch of transactions or reports, just a bank feed and be able to categorize stuff, and they're limited and restricted to these Schedule C categories. It's not like a chart of accounts. But I can still add it to and support those clients from QBOA, so I can still get a P&L or a tax summary report to help me do their taxes at the end of the year or what have you. Periodically check on them, and maybe one day they'll move up to like QBO Essentials or Plus, though there's no currently way to upgrade product to product. But still, self-employed is also growing, you know, like doubled from a year ago, almost. So anyway, why these numbers? Just so that at a stakeholder level in the firm, right, you're aware of what's happening. And then this is a rather busy slide. Again, you can download it. This is all external shareable information. But I think it helps me as you look at each piece of this PowerPoint slide is what are the benefits of using QBOA and your client using QBO. So as long as you got high-speed internet access. There's no offline mode yet, right? So as long as they have high-speed internet access, it's pretty much device agnostic, right? So it's going to look the same on a Mac in Chrome or Firefox as it does on my laptop Lenovo through Chrome or Firefox. There is a Windows app you can download. There's a Mac app you can download. It makes it behave a little more like desktop, but it's still QBO. And then, of course, you have the ability to download either QuickBooks or Self-Employed app on the phone. Limited feature set, but still, I can do stuff mobile. And as I'm out there, as long as I have a high-speed internet access, right, or using my data plan from the phone or whatever. For me, I think the most obvious thing we can agree on, or benefit I should say we can agree on, is the no need to transfer data files. There's no need for a portable or a backup, an accountant's copy. It doesn't matter what year the client is using, right? You're just either in their Simple Start Essentials or Plus or self-employed. You can access all 4 of those platforms from QBOA, and so can your staff. And then, infrastructure, you're not setting up a huge IT infrastructure because everything's on Intuit servers, right? Including the payroll, payments. 20+% of the U.S. GDP flows to our servers yearly. So the security is going to be really important. And we got a couple, 3 data centers throughout the U.S., and I think we have a lot of it on Amazon Web Services too. So now the only thing though is to consider is there's no true backup or store, but there are third-party apps, and I don't think I really cover third-party apps a lot today. But if you go to apps.com, or you'll see it when I go, I'm in QBOA, there's an apps tab. You can do research there across a bunch of different niches or industry, inventory, job costing, construction, e-commerce, point of sale, whatever. But there's a great app for a backup restore, and I can literally back up a file and then restore it into a new QBO sub, which is pretty exciting. You couldn't do that before. But there's no true, you're not going to see some backup option under some file menu in QBO, right? All right, so let's dive in. I'm in QBOA as you would be as well. Now we've aligned on the platform. And I'm going to be going through each one of these tabs. I do want to, before I start, the Your Books file, don't use it till you're really going to use it. It's not meant to be a practice playground or a sandbox. We give you a sample file you can do some lunch and learn with. It's under the gear icon, right? So like your client's QBO file, we have left-hand panel. You got a plus sign in the upper right. You got a search field. You got a gear icon. That should be thematic, like from a visual standpoint, or the user interface from QBOA to QBO, right? Your client would never access QBOA. This is just for me and my staff. And we'll get to the team and the staff in a second. But you can go into the sample company. Now, it resets itself when you leave, right? So it's not like Rockcastle Construction where you can just keep adding stuff to it. But it might be super helpful. It's a landscaping file. But net, don't use the Your Books file, because this Your Practice clients list is a mirror image of, the customer list, right? So I don't want to import a sample file or something in there, because then it'll just jack up my clients list, okay? So that's my one qualification about Your Books. And yes, you can restrict Your Books access to the members of the firm accessing QBOA. But each firm location, and I was actually doing a demo a couple days ago to a large firm that has like 4 or 5 locations, and they're moving tons of clients over to QBO. They have one QBOA, even though, and then each location, they're just team members of that QBOA. But I always think each location has their own QBOA, so each firm in the audience today, you would have your own QuickBooks Online accountant like you have it. And then you come over, before we even get to the dashboard, I just like to go to the team, because I think the collaboration is not just really with you and your client, but even maybe more importantly, you and the staff. You come into team, and here's where you can add other users. And it's just an email address and a first and last name. Nobody should be kind of ghosting in as whoever set up QBOA. And definitely there's no need to go into the client as, with a client's email. Right? You want to be coming in from QBOA as a team member. And well, there is kind of a scenario where I could see you be invited to the client file. I'm going to in Chrome, I'm going to go into another. I'm going to see, here I am as a client, right? So now I'm in QBOA. I'm going to take a little tangent. Sorry, this is how I work. Just try to hang in there. But there's really, if I go to gear icon, manage users, because this scenario came up, if it's like an audit task or an audit department, because obviously, from a liability standpoint, you're not allowed to modify any of the data, right? So you can, particularly if it's a Plus subscription and you have an audit department doing an audit in the file, and you're not going to bring them in as a team member at QBOA, and you don't want to give them any access to modifying or editing the data in QBO, you could set them up as a report-only user. Oh, okay, hold on. This always happens to me. 1 second. Pop up. Okay. So a report-only reader is someone that could come in and just view reports and the details on the reports without actually being able to edit or modify the data, So I could see that scenario where you might have someone in your staff at some point just being, in the manage user window up top, which is typically slated just for clients, and they'd be this like report-only person. And that's all they have access to. And it doesn't count against the active user list, and it's not a team member at QBOA, right? It's just a report-only user of, your client's file. But typically, you're never up here from a firm standpoint. You're only down here. Okay, and it's only one of you needs to be down there. The accountant, whoever set up the QBOA typically, or whoever you know at the firm, whoever the client knows at the firm, they can invite them. And then when they accept the invite, they're part of the QBOA, it adds it to the list, right? So you don't even need the 2 slots we give people. Now, I do a lot of testing, so you're right. I should not have 2 master admins, and I should not have 3 accounting firms, but I'm fortunate in that respect. But that's a one-off. That would be rare. Anyway, barring that scenario, the rest of us that are members of the firm are just team members of whoever started the QBOA. Okay, so you pick someone who managed it, they took the lead, or you created a generic email, you went to create QBOA, and now for like Valerie, really simple. Just first name, last name, email address. You can go into firm admin book section. You can give them the level of access they need. There's only 3 levels. So I have 2 scenarios. Valerie, who's really has pretty much the same administrative access as I. We're partners here. She just can't delete me or transfer the master admin to QBOA, and she can't sync up apps to clients, at least from QBOA. She could do it from the client side, but not from QBOA. That's about it. Other than that, we're pretty much the same. But when I was talking about my Your Books qualification, like don't use the Your Books file till you're really going to use it for the firm data, well, I could just choose no, even though I give her access to everything else, and she won't see Your Books, right? It's that easy. And it's pretty fundamental, the user restriction that you can apply to team members within QBOA. We haven't really expanded this as much. And I'll get to that question, Regina, in a second. The client access piece, here's where I go check off all the clients, right, that I want Valerie to see, even though she's basically a full user and really close to me as far as administrative duties within QBOA, except for those 3 things I mentioned. She doesn't see all the clients that I see. So I still have that ability. However, all the clients she has access to when she comes into the same QBOA, she's essentially a company admin on that client file. I can't actually do anything else to further restrict her from within the client file that I give her access to, right? So, all right. How do you delete an employee who's no longer with the firm? I only saw, yes, right, inactive, at least this point. Oh yeah, let me stay on this page. Right, you'd make them inactive. It's a great question. So, let's say someone leaves the firm to start for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. You would make them inactive so they can no longer access QBOA and therefore access your clients, right? However, if they're in invited status still, you can delete them, but that's the only other time you can delete a team member at this point. I hope we have an option to delete user right here. We'd put it right there. Oh, it'd be just one of these 3 options, but not at this time. So you make them inactive, and they just won't have any way of accessing the client file. And if they were a lead on a client QBO sub, meaning they were the ones that got invited or they created the sub, it'll ask you to transfer the lead to somebody else, some other team member, before you actually inactivate them. There's that too. Because there's this firm visibility. Well, we'll go into that another time. But anyway, I'm going to click yes without saving. Now, Ray, so good question, Regina. Thanks for that. Now, Ray, she has very little administrative access, right, to essentially nothing except the clients I give her access to. Now, remember, she's a co-admin on those client files. Can't further restrict her there, as I mentioned. But administratively within QBOA, she sees almost nothing. So if I go back to the home page, and then we'll dive into the dashboard, go through the other stuff. Notice I have everything, right? I got all the bells, right, as you might too. Add client, I got everything under the plus sign. I pretty much can do anything under the gear icon, even in the wholesale billing, etc. And then I got Your Books and all this stuff. So does Valerie, so does Leah, so does Sean, so do these other people that are full access. And then I have other staff members that have varying degrees of what they see. Now, Ray's, I'm in Firefox and Ray, because I like both Chrome and Firefox for QBO. I don't use the utilities we've created. I just kind of grew up on desktop since, like, I don't know, what were we supporting, Sean, 03 back then? Maybe. Anyway, grew up on desktop, but then I started using QBO in 09, right? So you get used to what you're used to. So I use QBO purely in a browser because I'm a creature of habit too. Anyway, notice what Ray sees versus me, right? Firefox, Chrome, awesome for QBO. Try to stay away from Internet Explorer pretty much for anything. All right. I have Ray has Clients Pro Advisor in Work. She sees 11 of our 22 clients, right? Because that was up to me. But I want to encourage her to get certified. I mean, she's not a desktop pro advisor. Since she's pretty new, I just have her be online certified, and she's only working on QBO clients. I'm still handling a desktop portion of our client base, right? Really, a few of us are. But Ray's just doing QBO clients. But I want her to get it certified and be more adept at the platform. And I give her the option to look at work so she can see projects she's created or tasks or things I've created for her, or do file share, which we'll get into after the Pro Advisor quick piece I'm going to do. So, and notice on the client's homepage, she has no add team or your books or add client. So pretty fundamental. The restrictions I can set for my staff, but I think important enough, and hopefully we'll expand on that, just like I hope that we one day expand on user restrictions within QBO itself. Okay, and I'm sure you'd agree with me there. Now on the dashboard itself, I know this is going to be changing soon, where we're going to move in some of the bookkeeping stuff into the Work tab. So look for that. I don't have it yet, but I did get Slack integration yesterday, so we'll look at that quick. But I have my clients, right? And then I have the status column. Now, you can go into a client file under the client picker up here, right? And that'll always be there no matter what file you're in. But there's also a little status icon that's gray, and then it turns green when you either click it or mouse over it. When you mouse over it, it gives you the level of QBO you're on, and then who's the user who signed in and when. And then I have some bookkeeping info. Unaccepted transactions, that's the bank feed. That's stuff that has yet to be added to the register. We use that language because you can either add it to the register as a new or match it to something that was already there in the register. So you accept it into the register. And we'll go over that at the very end, the full review tab, et cetera, and some best practices around making rules to automate the activity, or at least the categorization of the transactions coming in the feed. But we'll also show changes to reconciliations, checks without payee. I think those are the only red flags we really surface up at this time from a bookkeeping standpoint. But it's good to know. You can then prioritize the work. And then I have the last download date, payroll info stuff. If you don't do taxes, go ahead and turn taxes off. The trial balance doesn't mean the report. It's actually a tool. But for me, it's only really relevant once a year at tax time, unless you want to use it comparatively for that. Yeah, it's relevant once a year. I look forward to when we add a date range flexibility in there. But this is a tool. If you're using ProConnect Tax Online, it makes sense because you can push the balances over to that Intuit online tax software. Remember, that one has the Lacert data engine in there. And okay, so net, you can check off columns that you don't want, right? But I can't add any other columns. Right? Now, when I drill into a client, I'm not actually going to their books file yet. I'm just clicking on their name because I get this question a lot. How do I change the name? How do I do this or that? When I click Edit Client, right, it brings me back to the information here, right? But this is where I can make them, inactive if I want. And the master admin at QBOA can now delete clients permanently. This doesn't affect their subscription at all or cancel their subscription. It just removes the access from the firm to the file. And that's important because you're going to have these clients that maybe they go back to desktop, or they, for whatever reason, they go out of business or something like that. So you can delete them permanently from here to follow them off the list. You know what I mean? So that's new, but only the master admin. Hold on for a second. Hey. But you can delete it permanently. It takes it off the list. Okay? So that's important, but only the master admin at QBOA has the ability to do this. But I wanted to point that out because it's fairly new. But I can come in here and click on like the bookkeeping tab, the account watch list, last reconciled, the balances. Anything blue will actually log me into the client file, et cetera, payroll, shared documents, that's the file share, which we're going to go over when we get to the work tab. Right? So again, I'm not in QBO yet, but I am, just on the dashboard finding out more information. And yes, you can add notes that only you and your team see. You know what I mean? That's in there too. All right. That's pretty much the dashboard, but don't be shocked if in a couple weeks you notice yours change a little. Where did the bookkeeping info go? It's going to be moved to the work tab, It should be a cleaner looking home page, but again, I have seen it in some QBOAs, but it hasn't hit mine yet. All right, Pro Advisor. Real quick, because you probably hear a lot about Pro Advisor. Trial balance and tax returns. Oh, Carol, that's interesting. Let me go back. So Carol's asked, how do I add those other columns? So if you have a QBO subscription in the status and you have data in those QBO subscription files, then you should see bookkeeping and banking as options. However, if you've only connected to like ProConnect's Tax Online from QBOA so far, or they're just tax clients that came in from PTO because you're using that, then you would probably just, oh, well, no, I know what it is. I'm sorry, you have it. What am I saying? This thing I'm talking about, this kind of change to QBOA dashboard, you already have it. So the bookkeeping and stuff, Carol, that I can't show yet because they haven't rolled it out to my QBOA yet, it's in work. If you go to the work tab, you should see, some bookkeeping info and things like that, payroll, stuff like that. And you might have to toggle the QuickBooks to get it, but I think we moved it there. You should see it there. Let me know. But I think you already have what I'm trying to mention. I just can't show. I still have the older client dashboard. As we roll things in cluster to cluster. But that's why you're not seeing it. Thanks. It has nothing to do with PTO or anything like that. Never mind what I said. Now, quickly, Pro Advisor. Awesome. Yep, that's it. Thank you. I'm glad I recognized that before I went on this PTO talk, which would have wasted all of our times. I do apologize. Thanks for your patience with me. All right. So let me do the Pro Advisor. Let me get to John's question. Then we'll go to work apps real quickly. We'll dive into a client file. So I'm a Diamond member because of my number of clients. I'm not even advanced certified, but I'm still at the Diamond level, which just gives me a different level of support and stuff, right? And here's where I access my training to get certified and things like that, where I can add a client here from here too. And there's a bunch of other options. But here this is your benefits. Everybody gets as being a team member of a QBOA, right? Including discounts on third-party apps, wholesale billing, Pro Advisor support, US-based, things like that. We got training for your clients and et cetera. Each of you gets a free self-employed if you wanted to use it too. And then the training itself, when I click on training, and this is for the QBO certification, and some of you hopefully are already certified or you're going to be, it will go to accounts.intuit.com first and then come back into QBOA. So it's not going to open another tab, but it will redirect just to make sure you are who you are on our servers, if you will, kind of validate, and then you'll be down where you can come in under training to look at the available courses, and that's just online certification where I can get started. I have my certification. Yeah, I already got certified. There it is. I can download my certificate from here. I could get advanced certified if I want to. There's myself, other training and certification history as well as other training period. You can click on these. So that's the Pro Advisor piece. And I just wanted to mention it doesn't include desktop. That's still a paid thing, right? But the QBO side is free and for any team member, just like the access to QBOA is free for your team members. Right? And this never counts against the active user list of your client. Okay, now let's go to work. First, John, let's see. Is there a plan to bring in the mileage tracking? Yeah, so self-employed has mileage tracking and it has estimated tax payments, which are two feature sets that QBO does not. There is a plan to bring mileage into QBO. So not QBOA, because remember, QBOA is just the firm platform to access QBO, although I know you get a Your Books file, right? So, but yes, we are going to have mileage tracking. I just don't know the ETA or what app we're going to go with. And you're right, there are not a lot of apps that sync with QBO right now, third-party apps that actually do mileage tracking. I think MileIQ is the one that works as self-employed, and you use the GPS on your phone, but I know that's one I'm waiting for too. So I don't know when it's coming in though, but that'll be a big win when we get some mileage tracking in here. All right, work. Again, this is fundamentally going to be for any of your team members, regardless of what access level they have in QBOA. Two different features within work. One is creating projects and tasks within the project, right? So you could do like a monthly reporting and bank rec, and I always just use this as an example. Notice you can now track stuff just for the firm, because I can filter this list report I'm going to show you, so I can look at just firm gigs I have versus stuff for clients, right? But it's about really just the name of the project, who's the client, the due date, right? We'll do this on the 8th. I can make it recurring, so it could be monthly on the 8th, and it never ends, something like that, right? I cannot yet, and I'm waiting for this one too, create, because this is probably something I'll do for all my clients. So create this once and then publish it out to all 22, but, and make it repetitive. Soon that'll be. Right now I can only duplicate an existing one to add to another client, but hopefully that publishing or broadcasting feature will be available when you're creating projects. But I'm creating projects, I'm assigning it to whoever has access to that particular client. Right? The reason why I only see Ray and I is because only Ray and I have access to this particular file. Right? Other files I have access, I can choose anybody. And now with the Slack integration, you can set a Slack reminder, right? And choose the Slack person that it's going to do that with. I'm not sure why that's, oh, Ray's not part of the Slack yet. Sorry, I got to do it for me. Slack reminder, right? It's going to be for me. Put in your details, and if it's a larger project, you can add subtasks within the project assigned to different people with different due dates. Right. I typically just right now do just one project, but you can do project and tasks can be created to be kind of under the umbrella project, assigned to different people with due dates, right? So that's really what it is fundamentally. The Slack integration's new. You might see it in yours too if you're using Slack. If not, it's not really going to matter. But what this will do is when I added it right here to, did I do May? June 8th. Yeah, here it is, right? But in my Slack, I think I have it opened over here. If I was using it in another tab or something like that, I would see a reminder tomorrow or on the 7th or whatever, that I have to work on it by. So it doesn't push anything back yet, right? So here's my Slack. It's just a reminder, and then I can communicate when I have other members of my team to direct message. Slack's great for that. And literally the project created in QBOA in the Work tab is then sending the reminder to Slack, which we're using internally. If you're not, then it doesn't matter. But if you do use Slack, which is ever popular, then you can integrate it. And there'll be I don't have it anymore, but there's a little pop-up that reminds you to integrate Slack. And a lot of firms use it for just direct messaging and collaboration within the firm. It's just a great platform. We've really been enjoying it. We've been on it for at least a year now, internally and into it. Anyway, huge fan. So the other way, so these are cards on here, and look, who has it? So Kim has this. Status, you're tracking basically to do, in progress, blocked, done, or canceled, the name, and the client, right? And I can filter, okay? I can also put it in a list view because it has some better reporting. So I have all everyone types, and I'm just going to look at what is to do in progress over the next 30 days, So, and that's what it's looking at. In a list view, it's kind of a list report of what I'm seeing. Or I could see what's been done, like what has been marked done or canceled, in the last 30 days or something. So, and then who has it, I can filter from there. So there's that piece. I have nothing this week yet, and I have a bunch. You can also change things on the fly. Just mark them done as you're going along. Excuse me. Now, the other part I think is even more exciting versus, say, engagement tracking is the file share. You can create a request, and you could do a one-time request just because when you're doing bank recs, you're probably just getting a statement uploaded to you monthly, right? This is a great scenario for this. So, needs bank statement monthly, all right? And then you're gonna spell correctly, but for me it doesn't really matter. You're gonna select the client, when you want it due. Let's say get it to you by the 4th, because that thing I had to do was the 8th. To do, put in the details. I can even add a document if I want to send something to them. This is literally a portal file sharing system if you don't already have one, or you could use it just for this kind of thing. QBOA to QBO. You're the one who has to initiate it, right? Not the actual client. And it's going to notify the client by email because they're probably not in QBO. Now, it's just me, so I'm going to uncheck that. But at default check is there is a notification. Now, no time is the accountant or staff member notified. I'll show you where you see your notifications within Work, but you won't get an email. Hopefully that's to come. Or it'll be something in Slack or something. Hey, Clay uploaded a doc. That'd be killer too. But I'm going to publish to client's QuickBooks. And if we go back to this client, the My Accountant tab in the left-hand panel, this is where they go to review, what you've asked them to upload. Right? And this is where they can also share the documents. So I'm going to click into it, and then I can click Add Document and browse out to wherever I go to grab a document to then upload back to, whoever asked for it, right? I always use this picture, but anyway, it could be a PDF, it could be a portable file, it could be a picture, it could be a spreadsheet, you name it. It's going to scan for viruses and upload, and this is my client, this is Clay uploading it back to me, right? And this might be your Bankly statement, and you just leave it open. So every month they come in here, they click on the June one from June 4th. On July 4th, they come in here and they click, or 5th, sorry, whatever. They click on it and they upload the next statement, etc. You can use, this is like opening a window, right? And I can use the same one to go through and to have the client do it, or I can ask for other statements, etc. So that's what I know a lot of my friends are doing, using this for, and it's really QBOA to QBO. So when I come back to the work tab, I'm going to refresh. This is how I'm notified, meaning we, you guys, the accountants. If I scroll down and if I filter just for requests, see, all I see is this paperclip with a 1. I'm not going to get an email or pop-up or something. I mean, I'm hoping for more of an alert, if you will. But they could even ask me questions or talk to me about it. So I just click on it, and then I can see the document and download it. And then these are maintained in the Shared Docs tab on the client dashboard. I briefly gone over that really quickly. So that's work for now. The Slack integration, again, if you're not using Slack, then it doesn't really matter, but it's really just sending from QBOA to Slack, not yet back. But it's a good way to collaborate within the firm, and it now is going to, version 1, it's just here pushing the reminders to Slack, but soon I'm sure it'll have more integration from the Work tab. And like Carol proved, and thank you for that, Carol, earlier, she didn't, on her client dashboard, she didn't see like anything but the tax and stuff. So where do the bookkeeping columns go? They're now in the Work tab, and I hope the next time I do this webinar, mine will be updated to what she sees. That'd be awesome. So, good. Lastly, apps. Let's get into a client file. You might not be doing yet anything with third-party apps, or you might have some standard apps that you do with most of your clients. What we basically did was put apps.com inside of QBOA so that the master admin of QBOA can then add and connect an app on behalf of the client. And John, you might go in and click mileage just to see what apps are there, popular searches. I know there are not many that do mileage, but there's that. This is new today, popular searches, and they added mileage. So it's just interesting. It seems to be a theme. But you can also browse by category. Now, anybody that has full access can at least come in and find apps and look at, say, inventory management. And then, but only the master admin of the firm. And by the way, some of the, I think 8 of the apps so far, 8 has either 20 or 25% off if you connect it from QBOA, if the pro advisor does it, on behalf of the client. It's not part of wholesale billing yet, but it will be a consolidated bill on another day of the month, for all the apps you have for your clients that you've connected. There's 8 of those, and we're going to build that out too. It's called QBOA apps, and that's also kind of new as well, just to get a better discount for a client that really needs a third-party app and doesn't want to stay on desktop or enterprise, So when you click on SOS inventory, I click Get App Now. I can either install it for the firm, but I'm actually going to install it for, my client, this general product store, and it's 20% off because I'm doing it from QBOA, right? But only the master admin of QBOA can connect apps to a client. Of course, the client can always go purchase the app and connect it and invite me, and most of the apps have a free trial. So even the ones that aren't in the 20% program yet, you can still connect the app for the client, and then you're in the free trial period, so the firm's not paying for it. Invite the client as a user to the app, and then they just go ahead and put in their credit card. So you look for more on apps integration, but at least for now, I think the moral of this story is that, hey, I can come in here and do some research on apps for some of my clients that really need other functionality that QBO doesn't have yet, and it's built into QBOA. All right. Lastly, then we'll dive into navigation, quick reporting, accountant tools, and bank feeds. Adding a client, there's a third option, no subscription right now. If you just want them on the list, or they're a desktop client, and you're using the YourBooks file, and you want to bill them from there, well then, they don't have a subscription, and that's what you can choose. You can always add the subscription later on, right? And then there's the wholesale billing, which is 50% off for life of the sub. Some of you are probably already doing that. Direct discount is the client's billed, and their discount is just for the first year. Okay? All right, so I'm going to finally dive into a client file and go into cloud collaboration from the from QBOA. Now, as you probably already know, I don't have to spend too much time here, but there's some tips and tricks on browsing, and I'll use reporting and tools to kind of get a couple birds with a stone, and then we'll end with bank feeds and bank rules and some other automation. Should land right on time. All right, I got about 21 minutes left. So clearly, we saw it being in the client file as the client, and they're not going to have the picker to go back and forth to files, and they're also not going to have the toolbox, nor are they going to have the QuickBooks accountant, but everything else they pretty much have. Some tools to point out, again, trial balance is great annually when you're doing taxes and if you're using PTO, the ProConnect Tax Online, which we have a direct link and we actually send balances over there. But there is, of course, a trial balance report already under reports. And you have a quick link under here to accountant reports, as well batch or classify transactions. So this is a great tool we took from QuickBooks Accountant Edition, and you can just batch or classify things. You know, I only have one check, but if I had 10, it wouldn't matter. I can just move it all to the right account. And it's a good way just a bird's eye. And I can look at, you know, from the whole first of the year if I want, just to see, you know, and make sure that within each account I have the appropriate transaction type. So some people that I know with their clients will come in here first just to look at, you know, charitable donations and make sure, well, what are the the transaction types they are using? You know, it's not just about reclassifying uncategorized expense to the appropriate account in a batch, which I can clearly do, right? That's what the tool is designed for. But sometimes I just want to make sure, like for balance sheet accounts, that I probably have none this year, but the prepaid has only journal entries. So it's a bird's eye view without really running a report. So there's that. There's the voided deleted transaction report is great to see what's been voided or deleted. You'll want to know. The other tool I hear that many use, which is a quick way to get to reconcile, but there's other ways for that. Report tools, you can set the default date range for company financial reports, your summary reports, which is basically P&L and balance sheet, to look at this year-to-date and accrual. So when I go to reports, and you might have the older view, I mean, it's probably all over the map. Your clients have the older view of the report center. I have the newer view. Either way, it's all going to look like this. But if I go to the balance sheet, for example, because I love starring them as favorites and all the reports that I care about are right up top, you know, it's going to be this year-to-date and accrual. Now, so you can set the default basis and date range of those reports, company financial summary reports. That setting doesn't really impact the detail reports, so consider that. Or don't be dismayed when you run some sales by customer detail and it's not this year-to-date, okay? But you can always save your customizations. We'll go over that. So I'm on accrual. I'm going to look at, you know, previous year, percent change, you know, same options you'd see in desktop on that kind of stuff. And I'll have my columns. Now, what if I'm looking at something and I see this deleted account, but it has negative 7473? So that's already a red flag for me. Undeposited funds is way overstated. That's also an issue. I mean, I'm just looking down to see the typical culprits for this particular client. But before I drill down on it, I don't want to lose my balance sheet how I have it. So you right-click the tab you're on, duplicate. Right-click, duplicate. You can do this. It's great with reports, lists, transactions. Now, obviously, it's going to bring up another balance sheet. But now I could drill down on what I saw, you know, for a detail report, right? And now I have two reports open. And so you don't have to click in the back button and losing your place. This also works with transactions. I can right-click journal entry, open a new tab. So now I got 3 tabs open in the same file. So it works with transactions, lists, whatever. Also, if you notice, and just real quick on a journal entry as that's opening, now there's no way for me to rename the tabs, right? But still, you do have this hourglass on every single transaction type, and you can just go ahead and click on it. It brings you to, you know, the last 10 transactions of the type, you know, that you have there as a list. I know most journal entries are adjusting, but if you flag it as an adjusting entry, we have this adjusting journal entry report, kind of like a fail-safe for you. What journal entries did you enter versus others, you know? So, but this works with transactions, etc. The other thing, too, I wanted to mention is the top icon bar. So no matter what file I'm in, I can go ahead and click on COA, and it'll open up the list of registers for me. Items list is my product and service list. If I click pay bills, it'll bring me to pay bills. You know, and you can, all I'm doing is just starring it and adding it to the bookmarks bar and calling it what I want, pay bills, bookmarks bar. So I'm creating a top icon bar. I mean, it'll behoove you to create a Chrome user specifically for QBO, and you do that by clicking on the rectangle icon next to the minimize tab or minimize option in the upper right of Chrome. Now, Firefox is great for QBO too, but it doesn't do this. This is I have a lot of different Chrome users for different things, non-QBO, and then the other stuff I do with my job, right? So it just helps me to, I created a Chrome user just for QBO and QBOA presentation, so when I clear the cache, it only impacts this Chrome user. Right? So I find that really helpful, and it gives me a totally blank bookmarks bar, so I can create a top icon bar and be just one click away from really anything that I go to daily, regardless of what client I'm in. Now, this doesn't create it for anybody else in the firm or my client. They have to do it, but I can teach them how to do it, right? We got a lot of short videos on this type of content I'm showing, and I put that QBOBestPractices.com URL in the chat area. You can even share that with your client if you want. There's a browser best practice video. It's like 9 minutes long by Valerie Heckman, and that kind of gives you all the skinny on the tips and tricks to navigate, you know. But essentially, regardless of the, you know, client file you're in, even your client just has a left-hand panel, right? The plus sign at the upper right, and then the gear icon is operational stuff. Do join me for the, you know, Beyond the Basic webinars, because I go through all the different settings you'd want to know about for more product-based workflow and service space, you know. But this is kind of operational settings and lists, and then you have the plus sign for transactions, and then the left panel is the left panel, pretty obvious there. Accounting would be chart of accounts and reconcile, which you probably already know. So I don't want to bore you. When you left-click in search field, though, if you don't know this is important. The last 10 transactions that we either entered or modified will show up right away. So if your client tells you, hey, I'm really struggling with this, I just entered this check, whatever, the sales receipt, I did it wrong, you can just left-click, and it's probably right there. Also, you can do a search for reports in like A to Z, or you can see all your customized reports, too. So I like this. I'm going to do transaction detail by account report, because this is a great one for customizing. You know, and I can click the little thing there to get the little hamburger icon, I think they call it, 3 parallel lines in the upper left. It closes the left-hand panel. Anyway, within the detail reports, you can customize a lot more. Sorry, getting the words out, it's tough today. Here I can come in and uncheck, you know, any column or check columns that are relevant. Like you don't want amount and balance, but you want debit and credit, right? So I'm on a detail report, or I've drilled in on an account on a P&L or balance sheet, but I want debit credit and not amount balance. So you can quickly do that from the little gear icon in the upper right of the report itself. And that gives you the report you want. And so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're going to be memorizing the report, or we call it save customizations, right? You call it here, and I'm going to name it debit credit. And you can add it to a group if you want, and I can share it with just firm only. So Sean, myself, Leah, Valerie, Ray, we're the only ones that can see it. Not even the master admin Clay of this file can see this report. Or I can share it with all users that have that level to see it, you know, user level. So there's these things, but I'm saving my customizations so that I don't have to redo the report later, you know. And where do you find it? And we'll tie off reporting here. We've gone through navigation. We're going to end on bank fees and automation. But custom reports. This is my memorized report list. And I put it in the For Us group. You don't have to put them in a group. That's just an option. You don't have to share it. That's just an option. So I have a lot of reports that aren't shared or part of a group. And I can just click them so I don't have to reinvent the wheel and add the other columns. However, if you do put them in a group, what I do like, because I'll have some clients that the actual owners of the business don't go into the QBO file, which is usually a good thing. So, but they still want to see a report, right? I can edit the group that those reports are a part of and set this schedule so that weekly, on every Friday, Clay, you know, he gets these 2 reports. He gets the reports in the group. Now, they're not encrypted, So understand that. However, it's a good way for him to get the reports, because I don't really want to make him a report user in this scenario, because I don't want him to see all the reports. It's really just these 2 or 3 reports that he wants me to do. He's paying for me to do. So, and he gets it every, Friday. So there's that, auto-sending reports like that. And that was new in desktop in 17, but QBO's had it for a long time. Now, before we get to bank feeds, the other automation where sending is important or other things to consider. You have a memorized transaction list in desktop, right? So this is what we call it in QBO. Why is this a best practice? Because you're going to be doing the prepaid journal entry, and you're going to be doing the reversing entry as of the first of the next month. You're going to memorize them or make them recur, so you don't have to actually do them every month. Or there's invoices going out to clients, or you're going to teach your clients how to set up sales receipts with QuickBooks Payments to do an auto draft from their customer's checking account. It's totally free, 5 days to fund, but that's a great way. You can even do that from the yearbooks file. Recurring sales receipts with QuickBooks Payments. No monthly fee. The only knock is 5 days to fund, but it's better than an AR period, or most that I know of. But bills, checks, any auto entry. I think the automation I'm going to end with for the last 7 or 8 minutes is going to be bank feeds and bank rules. I think that's really a backbone of getting it up and going, to getting the data in the most efficient manner. But the recurring transactions, nothing to sneeze at. You're going to be doing this for your clients and setting them up. So in the type, it supports most types, right? So except for a customer payment, not including a sales receipt. Really a received payment against an invoice, a bill payment, or a paycheck. So it supports all the other transaction types except those 3. And if I just go to, say, an invoice here, right here, this is recurring, and you create the template. It's going to be emailed to Woody, and it's going to include any unbilled activity for this Bayshore job. Anywhere where I tagged on a cost side or time or a delayed charge form to Bayshore Chamber of Commerce, it's going to include it on this invoice as well as the $25. So there's some automation going with unbilled activity to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. There's automation in that it's going to be automatically emailed once it's entered, and it's entered every Friday for this service that I do. And regardless how poor the example is, this works with invoices, it works with bills, checks, etc. Recurring transaction is a great way, though you got to set it up first to automate data entry within QuickBooks Online. And there's a bunch of third-party apps that help with automation of data too. One in particular is called Auto Entry. If you have a client that wants to just automate all data entry, I'm going to put that you'll find it on apps.com in the chat. Auto Entry is fantastic for that. So there's a lot of apps to get rid of data entry, and everyone's just in review mode and running reports. But anyway, recurring transactions, a free way to do it without a third-party app. Now, let's go back to banking, or let's go to banking. We haven't been there yet. One of the first things you're going to do when you set up the file, or if your client's not doing it yet, do set up their credit card and checking account feed, or however many feeds they have. Most of the institutions we support is a direct connection, meaning anything that cleared yesterday, the financial institution, I should see here this morning. Happens sometime at night. There's also a Web Connect feed where I can upload a file. If for some reason it's a smaller credit union, I can at least get the .QBO file from them, or heck, most of them have a CSV, and I can literally upload into the banking window. And I'll, what happened yesterday, what happened last week, 3 months ago, whatever. A lot of people upload the first time they connect because they want to go back beyond 90 days. So some people upload a whole year or 6 months. So there is a way to upload if the direct connection doesn't work. Don't worry. That doesn't mean you can only do direct connection. We have a total web connection where I'm controlling. Some firms even do it to control the feed because of what's been happening with the client in the bank feed. So file upload's a great trick and a great workaround. PayPal, yes, absolutely. And Julie, thank you for asking that. Real quick, and then I'll come back to bank rules and categorization and things like that and some of the best practices I've been seeing. But if I click Add Account, because this is new, and though I can't really do it, I'm going to click PayPal. We have been working with PayPal to because before you'd set it up as a bank feed, but it would still be missing tons of detail. So recently, we have worked with PayPal where you can literally connect through the Connect to PayPal app, and it brings in a lot more detail about the customers that are paying, including it creates 3 separate transactions, the invoice amount or the payment amount, the fees, and then the total amount separately. So it's easier to reconcile. And what I'll do there is I'll make sure you guys have it since you asked. There's a good KB article, because I knew I wouldn't remember. PayPal, yeah. So there's a good KB article from Firm of the Future, as well as, on community.intuit.com on the new PayPal experience with screenshots. It's way better than it was. I mean, the workaround was to set it up as a bank feed anyway, but now the connection brings in more detail that wasn't in before. So yes, I suggest that for PayPal, and I'm sure it'll only get better our integration with that payment platform, because it's pretty much the best. All right, but let's look at the Amex, okay? Now, remember, unaccepted transaction was the language I used. I have for review in QuickBooks excluded within each bank card, right? After you connect it, this stuff cleared, pretend yesterday or whatever. But I just haven't gone in here and done it. But it says that on the homepage of QBOA for this client, it'll say that I have like 140-ish unaccepted transactions, right? This is what it's meaning. Between the checking account and the Amex card, there's a bunch of stuff in for review that's not been yet added to the register. Now, within each for review tab, we have all or recognized. As you work the feed, I know that iTunes is always going to this, or that the limousine's always going to travel, or that Mayher is a local restaurant. So because I've tagged it to that category before, QBO is going to remember. It's going to turn at least part of it green and then move it to the Recognize tab, because the benefit of the Recognize tab is everything's recognized, so I can just check it off, batch, accept, selected. That's the goal, is to get it that fast, so you're not coming through and having to drill on every single feed transaction and choose a category. You want, as you're working the feed, QBO, by design, is going to recognize its stuff, turn it green, so that you can go to Recognize first, just batch, accept, and then go and work the other 9 that it's never recognized before. However, and I have a friend that's been really encouraging me on this, because I don't think I was putting enough emphasis on bank rules. But really, she rules everything. And it doesn't matter. You can't overrule. I mean, you can definitely create incorrect bank rules, and I think this is where you come in. One of the many places you come in with QBO activity for the client is we don't want your client setting up the bank rules unless you train them well on it, right? Because you want to make sure that hey, I keep seeing this from wholesale supply company, and I want it to go to the 6310 account. So you're creating a rule. And you'll create many rules. That's its own tab, even for a vendor, because they might have different purchasing activity just for that particular vendor. So I have a wholesale supply rule. So every time that QBO sees it, it creates it, it tags it to the correct category, correct payee, same default class location or memo, right? And then there's even a part of the rule where I can have it auto-added to the register. But I like using these Amazon examples because you can get pretty creative with what you do with rules, because clearly a lot of businesses are purchasing from Amazon, and they might be purchasing large amounts or small. And there's some IRS implications there, right? And you would know that better than me. So I go to just the generic Amazon I have, which is, and pay attention to the criteria or condition line. You name the rule, money out or money in, but I see this as best for money out, but I'm not saying it can't be for in. And no, this rarely works for checks, and checks just don't bring the payee in. So again, I go back to that work trick of creating a file share with the client so they can upload the statement every month, and hopefully it has an image of the check or at least a payee that you can then go in and do it kind of manually. Checks are a tough one. So the goal is to do online bill pay and less checks, right? I mean, that's the answer there. I don't know how you get better at checks from a coding standpoint. If the bank's not sending us the payee, what do you do? There's no way to really create a rule for checks. What's the unique determinant that's going to allow me to create a rule? But for everything else, credit card expense, debit card expense, that kind of stuff, when a transaction meets any or all is when I want to be super exclusive. So in this scenario, usually the bank detail is going to have that, capitalized alphanumeric, right? Amaz, and then a bunch of numbers and stuff. That's how I usually see Amazon. Sometimes it's all spelled out, but usually it's that. The amount's less than 50 for a reason. This is my scenario. Description is usually the payee, in most cases, contains Amazon. So when all of these conditions are met, not when any, but all of them, QBO, the bank rule, is going to create an expense, literally a credit card expense from American Express to Amazon, supplies, typical COGS or expense account, whatever, default class location, and if I want, and it doesn't have to be reviewed, or I don't want my client to edit it on the way or add it, automatically add to my books. Literally after the rule's applied, it then just puts it in the register for you. But you're not going to do that with all of them, right? Particularly if you want to review them before you add them to the register, or accept them, I should say, into the register. I encourage you telling your clients to wait on doing these types of transactions in QBO until actually the feed can be the transaction. I mean, unless there's super urgency on me creating this credit card expense when I know I'm going to see it in 3 or 4 days, why not just wait till it comes in on the feed, and then I'm never really duplicating. I mean, we're built to match stuff already in the register, but sometimes we miss it, and it's a duplication, right? So if your clients can wait for the feed, I just wait for the feed. It's not always ideal, and I know you have more scenarios where you could school me on and say, well, this is why they're entering the transaction, but I like to wait for the feed. Now, I also have another Amazon for bigger purchases, meaning, over 500, I think is where it needs to be an asset. Again, I'm using all because I want it to be super exclusive, that the bank text contains this, this, this. When all these things are in play, it's going to hit the R&D account, which is another current asset, okay? Because it's over 500 bucks. And I have yet to create a rule for the in-between. Probably should. I usually leave it uncategorized. I actually think I have a rule to leave it uncategorized because I'm not sure. Anyway, you can get really creative. That's like the moral of that story. With rules, and you can have several rules per vendor and even stack rank them. If you have like industry clients in your base, they're all using QBO, I can export these rules and import them into another QBO. So I don't have to recreate them. Consider that as well. But rules are great. And then, like I said, it's going to put it in the recognized tab for batch entry. Okay? So when you're working like travel, since I've seen this several times, I might want to create a rule for this. And I would just go do it. Okay, now making it billable and passing it through to a customer, an invoice, and we're almost done. So thanks for hanging for next a couple minutes. That's only at the transaction feed level where I can do that, not yet at the rule level, but all the other fields are pretty much available when I'm creating a rule. So definitely do more rules as you're kind of working the feed and keeping track of your clients' purchasing, consistency or trends or whatever. Let's see here. This is a question from John. How do I guarantee that the transaction date on an imported transaction is not the actual date, not the date it's cleared the institution? Yeah, I don't think there's that guarantee, John. I think when you click the little gear icon, you check the box for an editable date field, and that allows me to impact the date to match it more. See this little baby gear icon? There's some settings here too. Like I often put bank detail in the memo field. I like to remember the category selection, but you don't have to, right? That's a good way to turn the QBO off from remembering that. And then show bank details I do, and then I usually make it compact. But this editable date field, I think, allows me to then go in and, change it to the appropriate. And again, that would be helpful to have the statement. So do send them a request from work to the My Accountant tab to upload the statement periodically. Because you're probably not doing feeds every day or even week, right? Biweekly or even monthly around the bank rec time. Probably the last thing you're doing before you go to the bank rec. So, but add that editable date field. I've heard that is helping. But other than that, I don't know how else you could fail-safe that one. So auto entry, I don't really have a payments account, but there is in the settings, just to show you. Your clients, they're going to want to do this, particularly if they don't need to do an invoice. If it's really a lot of sales receipts for services, great for service-based clients. They can come into payments and apply for it. It's free. Just put in the banking routing. Turn on then they go create a recurring sales receipt, right, for whatever the amount is. Happens every week, every month, whatever. But there'll be an option to put in the banking routing of their customers, and then we just do an auto draft, and it takes 5 days to fund. And then, we have a lot of firms that have moved their desktop file to the YourBooks file that are doing this for the monthly client fee. Those are on wholesale billing. They're rolling in the QBO sub fee as well as part of the services, and it's just a recurring draft from debit, really, from the client's account monthly. No AR involved. Anyway, I like that one. I have a few slides on it, but I don't really have it live. But we do have a video on it too. And let me end with that. If you go to QBOBestPractices.com, this is where you can sign up for other free webinars. This is, thanks, John. No problem. This is where, I just found a few things in that little gear. Remember that little baby gear, everyone. When you're on reports and lists, there's a lot of stuff you can turn on and off you might not know. And I'm continually tripping over that one. Anyway, QBOBestPractices.com, this is where you can go and do quick videos, useful links we find for everything from conversion to firm of the future to apps. Here's that matrix I was telling you about, and then here's a picture of us, your neighborhood product specialists. And then what Sean has done is he's listed you can register for the other free, again, no CPE, hour-long, typically 65-minute type webinars. And so there's that as well. And links to Accountant University to get the CPE, cert events and what they're doing. Anyway, so QBOBestPractices.com.